guys, so getting back into doing some tactics related things, and I'm going to tie this into doing some actual battle studies and things like that. So today I wanted to just kind of introduce a concept, or what could probably more aptly be called like a directive, which is just what it's called is find, fix, flank, finish, or sometimes just find, fix, finish. So again, like I said, so this is basically a directive. So what this means in its simplistic form is that obviously in order to attack an enemy, we have to find where they're at. Now it sounds kind of dumb to say out loud, but like in the modern sense, we have an inhuman amount of observation and intel from things like drones and satellites and planes and stuff like that. But even so, guys who have served in the Global War on Terror like I did, is like you oftentimes have no idea where the actual guys that you're looking for are. So finding them, and then a historic sense is, you might only have cavalry or you might only have light infantry out looking for them. So not only do you need to find some of their units, but you're trying to find where the mainstay of the enemy formation or the enemy group, the enemy army actually is. Fix. So what fix means is that we need to draw the enemy into some form of battle so that they can be engaged and maneuvered on. So for example here, let's say I'm a superior enemy force. So I have my 3 columns of march here. I have my light cavalry out scouting and doing other general mayhem stuff. We find our enemy force down here. So if the cavalry here engages them in order to fix them now that they found them, and the enemy force just evaporates back into the woods, there is no way to attack them with the mainstay of the force or with the superior forces that we, in this example, have. So, for example, the goal of the cavalry or, of the force in this example would be to try to engage an enemy in such a way that at least some of the enemy force fixes and engages. These guys still bug out. Now that they've been fixed, so they've been found, they've been fixed, now they can be flanked. And then once they've been flanked, they can be finished, right? So conceptually, it's pretty simple. Obviously in reality, it's significantly much more difficult than that. But what this also means is that, and this is where a lot of very famous battle examples come from of, like what we call meeting engagements. So for example, if we had, let's say, we had relatively even forces that were out here. So we have very strong, powerful formations on both sides. We have enemy cavalry, we have our cavalry out that are searching for each other. So we find them, we engage them, they don't want anything to do, they go back here. We find them, we fix them. Now, this can be where pieces get taken off of the board, right? So now, in the fixing phase, if smaller units allow themselves to be fixed or to be engaged too much, that's often where we get some of the kind of the famous battles of that tend to be smaller in scale, but where everyone tends to be killed or wounded or something like that. So again, so find, fix, flank, and finish. And now this also happens to do like in this example I used cavalry and being out in the field. So we could also use this example, very good example from history of incredibly large scale. Would be, let's say we get into the late fall of 1942, and so you have the Germans and then their allied, the Axis forces that are farting around in the Great Bend of the Volga, so around Stalingrad there. So you have the mainstay of the German forces are actually in Stalingrad itself. Now there's German elements that are kind of out to the flanks over here, 4th Panzer Army, things like that. You have army groups. The Germans are also way down here in the Caucasus, but the Germans also have Romanian and Hungarian elements that are making up their flanks. So the Russians in Operation Uranus, while they're attacking and dealing with the Germans here, they attack these flanking elements, right? Attack the flanking elements, drive through them very successfully. Push themselves all the way through here, drive through the Romanians very successfully. So now, obviously the enemy has been found. So the Germans, and what was probably a smart decision in the very immediate time frame, is the Germans, they retreat their units back to Stalingrad itself if they're able to. So they've been found, they've now been fixed, right? They've been fixed. They've technically already been flanked as the Russian elements here move around to a town called Kalach over here that crosses the Don. So now the Germans have been fixed in Stalingrad itself, which allows the Russians to basically bring up their follow-on elements. And now that they are completely surrounded and cut off, the Russians are basically able to take their time and diminish this pocket, right? Now, it needs to be said that in order to kill, wound, and capture 250,000 Axis troops around Stalingrad, the Russians suffered 1.3 million casualties. So just because you find them, just because you fix them, just because you flank them, and just because you finish them, doesn't mean that they don't fuck you up in the process. However, very good example of finding, fixing, severely fixing in this case. Having them fall back to Stalingrad and then having the Russians control Kalach over here absolutely sealed the fate of the German 6th Army. But very good example, a simple concept. So again, find, fix, finish, or find, fix, flank, finish.